So this was my first time watching Casablanca. Of course, I've heard about Casablanca. Who has not heard about Casablanca? If you know anything about movies, you've certainly heard about the movie Casablanca because it's considered one of the greatest films in history. And, everybody knows about the airport scene, the line, "Here's looking at you, kid," which I thought he only said once, but he actually says that multiple times in the movie. I just thought he said, at the end when he's saying his goodbyes to Elsa, but nope, he says it a few times. Like that's just what he says to her a lot. For those of you who don't know what Casablanca is really about or anything, basically the premise is Casablanca is a location during World War II after France got taken over by German, where a lot of the French people kind of fled to Casablanca to get away from the Germans. And our good old buddy here, Rick, played by Humphrey Bogart, is like a club owner. And he's like a character who, kind of cool character, really, if you think about it. But he doesn't care. On the surface, he doesn't care. But underneath, he does care. And he kind of hides that. He's somebody you can go to trouble, go to with problems. And he'll tell you, no, he ain't going to help you out. But then, as soon as you leave, he knows some people who will come up to you and help you out with your situation. Sorry about that. I've been doing this for about 2 hours at this point. Anyways, and then he'll kind of help you leave Casablanca. You also have, and I didn't know that he was in this movie, Claude Rains' character. He plays the captain. And he's kind of like the same way, though. He's kind of somebody who will go with the wind, though he preferred the wind blows towards those against the Germans. But he'll casually help the Germans because he sees that it'll benefit him. And so him and Rick are kind of like the same characters, only he has, Claude Rains' character, the captain here, has, legal power, authority power, while Rick's character, Humphrey Bogart, don't really have that power. He has to do everything in the shade and in the nighttime. And that kind of plays into the cinematography on this one, is that it really does play the shadows and the light and the darkness very well. I love it. I love the cinematography in this movie, and especially that part of the shadows. There's a scene where he's talking to a guy, and they're in the light, he's smoking his cigar or cigarette or whatever. And he kind of leaves the screen to go get something, but you still see his silhouette against his shadow, his silhouette against the wall. And it just tells you everything about how how he works in the dark and the shadows. Nothing is in the daylight, is in the light time, Everything's behind the scenes. Just love how they use the lighting in this movie. That's one thing I really like about black and white movies, is how it seems like the light and the shadows are really definitive and played. I think black and white movies are really great for like horror movies. I watch those old Draculas and stuff, just because of the lighting. Gives that creepiness, and it's kind of like the atmosphere and the environment itself is the black and white. How some directors shoot these movies, and Casablanca is no different than that. Of course, you got Elsa, played by Bergman. And I saw her in a previous movie. Was it Somebody's Sons, right? Adam and His Sons. I think she's in that movie. So I saw her like before Casablanca, before she became a big movie star. And her performance in that movie was great. And, of course, she's fantastic in this movie, too. She plays, of course, the love interest of Humphrey Bogart. Now, I've heard about, like I said, I've never seen it, but I heard a lot about it. And one thing I didn't know was that she was already married. I always thought the story was they dated, they broke up, she got married, and then years later they reunite. And it's not really like that. She was married when she was having this fling with Humphrey Bogart. And I was like, oh, so this is like a cheating movie? But turns out that her husband was presumed dead. And so she was kind of like a grieving widow. And then after while they were dating, she finds out that her husband's still alive, and that's why she doesn't escape with Humphrey Bogart's character. And her husband has an important role at this during this time because he's kind of part of the resistance, and that kind of leads to the final separation at the end of the movie between her and Bogart. But she plays her character very well. A lot of emotions she's able to show in that face and her voice. And same with Bogart. And of course, you got the great ending scene at the airport when they're saying their goodbyes in that long speech. I'm not somebody who can say stuff word for word, so I won't repeat it. But again, you know, I always do the line, I think this is start of a beautiful friendship. I didn't know what movie it was from. Turns out it's like the last line in Casablanca between the lieutenant and Rick, you know, between Bogart and Claude Rains' character. As now they're finally stepping out from the shadows and are going to be working together to resist the Germans' authority in Casablanca. This movie came out in 1942. So, I mean, at this time period, World War II is still up in the air. Who's going to come out winners and losers in this war? So, you know, in a lot of ways, this is a propaganda, a war propaganda movie. Especially if you think about it, it was probably shot in 1941 when America wasn't in World War II yet. You know, they were helping the British, kind of like Bogart, in the shadows, in the dark, you know, unofficially helping the British in their war efforts. And this movie's kind of say, you know, it's time to be up front and work in the light and be real with what we're doing and helping out these the British and the French against German. I kind of get that impression with this movie, but it's not in your face. Like, it's not gonna show it in your face, but it's kind of like hidden message, kind of like how Rick works. You got some great music numbers. You know, the first big one is "Knock on Wood," and it's kind of like Rick at this time. You know, as the song progresses, you know, first is a guy kind of down on his luck, you know, knock on wood until he's on top of the world, and knock on wood that he doesn't fall back down. That's kind of like Rick's progression, his character in this movie. Movie does definitely live up to the hype. So if you've never seen it before but been reluctant because expectations are so high, it does live up to those high expectations. Like I said, the film cinematography is great. Humphrey Bogart is fantastic, as well as, now I'm having trouble remembering her name. I just said it earlier. Ingrid Bergman is fantastic in this movie as well. Claude Rains is great. You got a lot of story going on in this one, a lot of moving parts, and the director, the writer are able to juggle them perfectly and timing. It's just a great movie. I'm glad that I was able to buy it on Fandango for $5 because it's something I would be revisiting. Checking out my notes, see if there's anything that really sticks out that I haven't touched upon. Yeah, the dialogue is really good. Like, every conversation is interesting. I stayed away from it because as a kid, you know, I didn't want to watch it because I was more like into comedies and action movies. And I thought, well, this is going to be like one of those a lot of talking dialogue movies. And, you know, as a teenager, somebody in their early 20s, I wasn't really into that. Now I'm into my 40s, and I kind of like those kind of movies where you got a little bit of action, but a lot of it is scene-by-scene dialogue stuff is great. The beginning of the movie, when they shoot down to Casablanca, remind me a lot of Raiders of the Lost Ark, and how that scene is shot when they go to Africa. But overall, it's a great movie. Check it out if you have a chance. And until next time, bye.